What is up, freaks? It's your boy Marty Ben here to introduce this episode of Tales from the Crypt. Second rip of the day. I'm posting this right away. I just recorded with Paul Itoi, one of the co-founders of Sphinx Chat. I'm sure if you've been listening to this podcast, you've been hearing me talk about Sphinx Chat a lot. It is, again, one of my favorite apps that's natively built on Bitcoin, particularly the Lightning Network. It allows you to send messages over the Lightning Network fully end-to-end encrypted, stored and sent from hardware that you control. On top of that, it's helping us monetize TFTC with the value for value model. I hope you liked the episode with Alex Epstein that we dropped earlier today. And I never like to do 2 episodes in one day, but I mean, the conversation that we just had is just, it's too fucking bullish. It's too mind melting. I need to get it into the hands of the freaks as soon as possible. Really funny that I'm going to do some ad reads in front of this episode, but I think what Paul is building will help us get away. I'm actually pretty certain it's going to help us get away from ad reads. I wouldn't be surprised if 2022 is the year that TFTC goes completely ad-free across the board, thanks to people like Paul. Thanks to Paul specifically and the team at Sphinx for what they're building. I'm finally pronouncing it right. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at the motherfucking Cash App. Cash App's helping you stack sats, send sats, receive sats, sell sats. We're saying sats because sats are the standard. There's 100 million sats in one Bitcoin. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can stack sats. You can buy as little as one cuck-buck worth of sats on the Cash App. Currently, that's going to get you like 1,600 sats. You're getting less sats for your cuck-buck every day now, it seems. You can DCA into sats. You can set it and forget it. Set a set amount that you buy daily, weekly, bi-weekly on the Cash App. Now they just announced you can send sats to Cash App users using cash tags for free. So you can just send Bitcoin to people on Cash App automatically now. Pretty dope. Just put in their cash tag, the amount of Bitcoin you want to send them, up to a certain limit as dictated by the app, and you send it to them. All right. Use the code STACKINGSATS if you haven't downloaded the Cash App yet. That's STACKINGSATS. You're going to get $10. And $10 is going to go to our good friends at Owls Lacrosse. That's Owls Lacrosse. Owls Lacrosse. This rip was also brought to you by our good friends at Brains. Brains, BRAIINS.com. Go check them out. They've been doing incredible things in the Bitcoin space for quite some time. They're the team behind Slush Pool. They bought the remaining minority stake of Slush Pool from Slush, the founder of Slush Pool, last summer. It was announced earlier this year. Jan and Pavel are the two co-founders. They've been on this episode. They've been on Tales from the Crypt before, episode 99. Edward Evenson has been on the podcast as well. Actually, I think Jan and Pavel were number 73 and Edward Evenson was number 199. We're talking about how they operate the pool, how they're basically building services for miners on top of that, which is manifested most famously and most aggressively in Brains OS Plus, their firmware that they offer miners that they can download. It makes the miners more efficient and enables them to stack more stacks, okay? Stack more sats. All right, Brains, they've also been staunch Bitcoin supporters throughout their whole history and never mined Bcash or any of the other shit forks. They've discovered Amplead and patched it for miners. They're building Stratum V2, which will help distribute the mining pool layer. They're just doing incredible things all around. Go check them out. They have a mining profitability calculator if you're a miner and you want to see how profitable your rig has the potential to be at a certain cost of electricity. They have that tool for you. Go to brains.com, BRAIINS.com, and check them out. Shout out to the Brains team for supporting the show. Also, another team coming to us from the Eastern European area. Hodl Hodl. Hodl Hodl has their Lend program, or Lend platform, which is now available to U.S. citizens, okay? And it's available. They're able to do this because it's non-custodial. So you're never giving up custody. You put your Bitcoin up as collateral in a multi-sig escrow. You always hold one key, and you can always track to make sure that Bitcoin's not being rehypothecated. They can't move it without the escrow service, without HODL HODL, or it's just stuck in that multi-sig. All right, so you put your Bitcoin up as collateral, you don't sell it, you get some liquidity in the form of stable coins, and then you go spend them however you see fit. You cash them out for dollars in the traditional system. On top of that, if you have stable coins, you can put them up and get yield on that. All right, this is a platform where individuals meet anonymously around the world. You come to the lend.hodlhodl.com, their platform. You come to an agreement with a counterparty. You put Bitcoin up as collateral, and you get liquidity. It's pretty beautiful, leveraging the native properties of Bitcoin. Hodl is an incredible company. Lend.hodlhodl.com is the product that is available to U.S. citizens. Again, no KYC, no AML. You have control. You can enter this anonymously. It's pretty beautiful. Go check them out. And then go check out our friends at Compass Mining. Compass Mining is basically allowing individuals, the plebs, to get into the mining game. All right, they're taking away all the obscurity, all the pain, and the work of trying to get a miner and then plug it in at a competitive electricity price. All right, so they're helping you source miners. You pick which miner model you want. You buy that miner. They get it for you. And then you pick which hosting hosting facility you want it to be hosted at. They have very transparent electricity costs. They're very competitive electricity costs. And you basically buy the miner. They source it for you. They plug it in at the facility that you pick, and then they plug it in. You start stacking sats via mining. They're helping to distribute mining and get more individuals involved. And again, they're taking away all the pain involved with that process. So go to Compass Mining, CompassMining.com to check all of this out. Tell them TFTC sent you. Big things going on, freaks. Big things going on. Things are happening. I'm very extremely bullish right now. And after this chat with Paul, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We can get away from this digital panopticon. We can create this value for value economy, and it's going to happen on Bitcoin. You don't need shit coins. You don't need other tokens. You don't need other blockchains. It's going to happen in a layered fashion on top of Bitcoin. It is happening right now. It's incredible. This blew my mind. Enjoy it. Tiki.
You've had a dynamic where money's become freer than free.
If you talk about a Fed just gone nuts, all the central banks going nuts.
So it's all acting like safe haven.
I believe that in a world where central bankers are tripping over themselves to devalue their currency, Bitcoin wins. In the world of fiat currencies, Bitcoin is the victor.
I mean, that's part of the bull case for Bitcoin.
If you're not paying attention, you probably should be.
What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Tales from the Crypt. It's your boy Marty Bent here for a very, very special episode. I'm extremely excited to be sitting down with the gentleman I'm sitting down with to talk about one of my favorite apps in the Bitcoin space, which is Sphinx Chat. Sphinx Chat. I think I'm pronouncing it right. I'm sitting down with the co-founder of Sphinx, Paul Itoi. Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Marty.
I was saying, like, I stopped from gushing over you in the app before I hit record because I want to make sure it hits the airwaves, and the freaks that may be unaware of what's going on understand just how much I love the product that you've built and what it's enabled me to do as a content creator in terms of monetizing my content and then engaging with the audience that listens to this podcast. And it's just been incredible using the app for the last, feels like 5-6 months almost now. Every day. I use it every day.
I love it. Music to our ears. And of course, we've got a team of people working on this, so I feel a little guilty about being the lone voice here, but sometimes that's the easiest way to explain something. But we have an amazing team from design all the way down to coding that I just feel lucky to be working with every day. Seriously. I know people say that a lot, but I really do wake up every day feeling like that.
I mean, well, you guys are on the cutting edge, right? This feels like the cutting edge. At least we're leveraging Bitcoin, and more particularly the Lightning Network, to change the way content's monetized, and beyond that, the way teams communicate. And so before we jump into everything we can do with the app that you're building, like, how did it come to be? What drove you to sort of produce this particular product?
Well, you know how you get keyed up on a topic or just start to look? I was previously running an app that taught people how to do keto back before it was pretty accepted. So we used to never talk about it. I would never tell anyone what I was working on because you're always embarrassed to bring it up because you're someone pumping a fad diet, right? And in that space back in 2015, 2016, if you were a physician or a coach or a nutritionist or dietitian and you recommended it to someone, you lose your license. People got sued. Look at Tim Noakes, look at a lot of these people, Patricia Daly. So I started looking at how do you actually communicate with someone and also pay them, because these people need to get paid for their advice and their services without necessarily doxing either party. Because I might not want to share that I'm paying for this, and the person getting paid might not want to share. And so that's what had me looking for a solution like this way back then. And when I saw the Lightning white paper, it was really, I didn't get it at first. It took a long time to understand, and reading other people who were writing about Lightning and found that, whoa, this could do it. And that was several years ago. So it's been a long process. So
Yeah, well, the app is very well fleshed out and has gone beyond your original vision and really touched something that I'm passionate about. Obviously, it's just podcasting and helping to preserve the decentralized nature of podcasting, which many would consider sort of the last bastion of hope for the ability to have decentralized, non-censorable content on the web.
yeah, I feel like, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but I think, I met Keto Miner from Noddle. Those guys, Laurent and Keto Miner, when I first started exploring this whole thing, and they started talking about your podcast, and that's actually, I found your podcast a while ago. And so one of our first thoughts was, how can we use this for micropayments for podcasting? But it took a long time, and it took the Adam and Dave at Podcasting 2.0 to get the index together. And that's a key piece to this whole thing too. But I actually think that audio and specifically podcasting, because it's kind of underdeveloped, there's no community around podcasts. You can't really, I can listen to your show and I could have strong thoughts about it in my car, but how do I connect with the other listeners, right? It's not something you can really do today. And so that's why we built the tribes and we built all this stuff around it as well, because it's not just providing support, but also creating that group that you can talk to the people that are part of your listener base and get a two-way communication going. And more importantly, getting them meeting each other and talking to each other.
Yeah. No, actually, right before we hopped in, or not right before, about an hour before we hopped on the air here, I threw in our tribe, our TFTC tribe, like, does anybody have any questions? And lo and behold, the only person with a question is the pro basketball player you just brought into the tribe, Delhi. We'll get to his question eventually, but it's just incredible, like the direct connection I have my audience now, at least the audience that's consuming the Tales from the Crypt content via the Sphinx Chat. It's great. It does feel like an exclusive club, and seeing people like Adam Curry in there. Now we have Delhi from the Cleveland Cavaliers hopping in, asking questions, using this app and leveraging Bitcoin. It's beautiful to see.
And he gets it. And in the show notes, it'd be great to put a link to his Bitcoin 101 write-up he did, which he sent it to me and I thought, okay, he's pro basketball player. How is he going to have time to write a good write-up on Bitcoin, which has been done many times, right? And I share that one more often than anything else. It does a great job of covering the topic for someone completely new. So we should definitely promote that and share that out, because he must have put a ton of work into it, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, Bitcoin is just starting to touch everything and bringing in people from all walks of life. It's feels like it's happening. Feels like it's
I know.
happening.
I know.
And
It's great. And I should explain a little bit. I mean, I'm sure people have heard you talk about it, which I appreciate and we appreciate on the team, that you've been really leading the charge on building a community around your podcast and talking about Sphinx Chat and getting it, right? Because when I explain this to people, I went to I think the FOMO Lightning meetup in New York 2 years ago. And I went there and wanted to talk about chat, like how do you chat over Lightning? And it went over like crickets. People just looked at me like I was crazy. And one other guy was working on it, and to see it come this far is just great. So, and the guys at Lightning Labs and others who have worked so hard on the layer 1 and then layer 2, what we're doing is just using the protocol that they built and basically putting text into a payment protocol. So anyone who's using Sphinx out there, if you're wondering, we don't do a great job of explaining this stuff yet. Every bit of content is encrypted on your phone with a private key. And so before it ever leaves your device, it's being encrypted. Secondly, it's not going through a centralized server. You're moving things over the Lightning Network. So it is peer-to-peer. And then third, the protocol itself, because it's Lightning, you're talking over a payment protocol. So you're not trying to tack on payments to a speech protocol or a text protocol, which is why I would argue the internet's broken. You're taking a payment protocol and adapting it for talking to each other. And it just increases the privacy set and use cases for Lightning. So I think it really does go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's insane when you think about it. It's like you're using Bitcoin to text message people and to use Bitcoin the way it's supposed to be used, to send value to others who are providing value for you in some way or another. I don't think people grasp the gravity and the magnitude of how innovative this is, and how it can change many things just beyond podcasting in general. Like, so hypothetically, like with this messaging protocol built on Lightning, like you can create very unique apps that that make it so it like doesn't, it's too costly to spam. Like I think on Preston Pish's podcast I was on a few weeks ago, I mentioned Sphinx and described that, and then it was like, if you were to apply this to other social media, because like the example I use, like when he tweeted out that I was going to be on his podcast, literally my notifications just got flooded with Twitter bots, and like the ability with messaging over Lightning and ingraining that inherently natively in new apps, you can sort of make it so that that type of activity is too costly, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because everything can require a payment, then you can require, we do something in the tribe where every time I post to your tribe, I'm actually paying a couple sats to just post the message, which you could set to 0 if you want, but I think you also have the right to set it to earn from interactions from people in your tribe. But then also what's happening in the background, you can set an amount that's a deposit for every post. So if you have a new user who comes in and just writes a spammy post, you're taking, say, a 50 sat or 100 sat deposit for that post. And if you have 12 hours as the admin, or 24 or whatever you want to set, to delete that post. And if you do, the person doesn't get their deposit back. So you can scale. One of the problems with all of these things like Twitter or Telegram or any of the groups is that as the group size grows, the admin chores grow with the spam, because you get bigger, you attract spammers, you attract bots. Now the admin is going, hey, this is great, but the headwind is I have to delete all these bad actors. So if the system itself can allow people in, keep in mind it's pseudonymously, right? You don't know who these people are, they're coming in, but the system itself prevents these pseudonymous people from acting poorly. So you can build the financial incentive into the chat itself to prevent the bad actors.
Yeah, that's another incredible thing. Like most people have a nickname, don't use their real name. I don't know who most people are in our tribe, which is a really cool thing as well.
And you can set, we added this recently, you can set a different nickname for every tribe you join.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty
So
dope.
that's great. And we're just trying to increase the privacy everywhere we can. And it's not going to be perfect day one, but we're on that path, right? And you can see what the goal is by just putting all the pieces out there and getting the ball rolling, but also hopefully getting more and more people involved in the development process. But back to that tribe thing for a second, I don't think that most people play this out until I talk about this topic at length. But if you think about the whole concept of freedom to assemble, right? You're doing more and more things are happening online. And so now you can get together in a tribe like this, but they've always been limited by that spam issue. The bigger you get, the more you attract, and the more linearly this sort of anti-spam efforts have to be. But if you remove that and you kind of have the system itself take care of it, how big can these groups get? I don't know if there's necessarily a limit to the size of the groups.
that, and then again, going back to, I'm sorry, I don't know why I got a little distracted. I'm sure you can hear the Slack notification in the background. I've turned off Slack on my desktop and my phone. I've turned my phone off and everything. It's still feeding me notifications. So sorry for that confusion. But on top
That's
of that,
okay.
like due to the incentives baked in with the staking and the power that the admins have to deflect spam, like the quality of conversation can improve significantly. Or
I really think it can. We just need to get more people in now. And now that we've did a big release on Monday of the system, anyone with a node and with a channel can now support the Uncle Jim model where you can bring other people onto your node. So you could run your own node on a Raspberry Pi, and then you could support, in theory, thousands of people, onboard them onto your node. And then if they decide, they get a pub key, they get to spend, they can join tribes, they can do whatever anyone else can do on the system, but they don't necessarily have to have a channel day one. They're basically sharing your channel and your infrastructure. And then if they then want to go off and do it on their own, they can take their pub key with them and install it on their own node and move on. So we need to make that process easier and more private, but the whole idea is to get people experiencing it without necessarily having to set up a server themselves and open a channel. So any podcaster out there could get a node, get a channel, and then onboard their audience and build their tribe without necessarily having every single one of those people do it themselves. So that's a huge change. So we call it Uncle Jim or multi-tenant or whatever you want to call it. And that's going to be a big change in how we can bring people on. Because right now, the people who have tried to join, we have nodes every now and then on our webpage. And now Umbrel, MyNode, and Raspberry Pi Blitz and Noddle all support. I think Noddle doesn't have it out quite yet, but the first three all support Sphinx installs as part of the home node setup, which we're really stoked about.
awesome. Yeah, that's massive, especially if it becomes like a go-to for these node softwares, node in a box, node stack in a box, if you will. They start including this, which could be massive for onboarding. The ability for me to just onboard users via my node is pretty massive. And so what else went into this refactor? That's what you reached out earlier this week or last week. You're like, yeah, we're about to finish this refactor. It's a good time to talk. So how do you plan on getting the message out there? And how can I help getting this in more hands? Like, freaks, if you're listening to this right now, download the Sphinx Chat.
Yeah, we're now in the App Store. You can download the APK from our website if you're on Android. We have Mac desktop is also approved in the Mac App Store. We have Windows and Linux. So all that's available. So any device you can use. Some people are having trouble on Graphene, but if you're a Graphene user, give it a try. Adam's using Graphene. It says it works fine. So it might be a settings issue there. But pretty much any device you can actually use Sphinx and it's completely synchronized, just like iMessage or any of the other chat apps. So when you get a new message on your phone, you're seeing it in your desktop. And you mentioned Slack before. You can create private tribes. So our development team, we have a channel or a tribe on desktop that's hooked up to GitHub. It can be hooked up to any of the continuous integration tools, exactly like Slack. So we completely stopped using Slack internally. And we can even do Zoom features. If you look at the top, you'll see that phone icon. You can do audio, video, screen share right from within a tribe or within any chat. And that opens a Jitsi call, which is an open source version of Zoom.
Yeah.
So it's not just for tribes and podcasts. It's actually for internal communication, Slack, whatever it is. And you could have a contractor there and actually pay them through the tribe itself. Pretty wild, right? So I could work with a developer where normally they'd have to dox themselves to get paid, but you can say, I'll just send you some sats right in the tribe.
This is freaks. If you're not grasping the magnitude of this,
I know.
please take
I
a
feel
step
like
back.
I don't know what in your background made you sort of recognize this? Because, we have not talked about this. I think we have tweeted a couple times. We've tried to get enough users. In tech, you have the whole concept of minimum viable product, right? So we have minimum viable beta, which is the fewest number of people to get you good feedback, but you don't want a ton of people on a product that's half-baked. And so we've been approaching this as there's just a ton to do here before this is even barely tolerable. And I'd say we're at the barely tolerable phase. And just minimize the pain across people. But you need enough people to get their feedback.
I mean, from obviously big fan of Bitcoin. I think as somebody who's been podcasting for almost 4 years now and seeing the transition to the sort of siloed platform model that's been replicated or been brought to market by YouTube and iTunes and other stuff like that. No, Spotify trying to take podcasters, like I think it's important to keep it open. And so like that's what drew me initially, because Esquedo from the Nodal team, he's actually been talking about, he tried to get me to set up my podcast on here like last year, and honestly I just didn't have time. And at that point, like it was not gonna lie, just like too confusing to figure out how to navigate the app. But after speaking with Adam Curry for a little bit and talking to him about podcasting 2.0 and not understanding how easy it was to connect that, I believe Esquedo helped me out there too. It's like, all right, it actually probably makes more sense for you to do this now. So I think it was like August or September of last year, we linked up TFTC for the first time. And beyond that, like, so before we even like put the podcast in it, just the fact that you're chatting over Lightning and under like knowing that it was end-to-end encrypted. Like once I confirmed that, it was like using the app to chat with the Squado. I believe maybe yourself even like in the early days, with my initial Sphinx node. I was like, is this encrypted? And are we using Lightning? And like once it's like that, it's like you can't stop this. Like it's ridiculous. Like that, just the chat aspect alone blew my mind. It was like, this is the way it needs to happen.
And I feel like, and this I think at first may not have been widely accepted, but Lightning adoption is hard, right? When you want to adopt a new technology, there's the whole thing of frequency and breadth, right? So you have to have a reason to use it frequently. And for me, being in this space, I do not really use Lightning that often to buy things. Like I'm not generating Lightning invoices. I'm not buying stickers that often. I just don't do it that much. If I were into gaming, I might be doing it more. But so I looked at and our whole team did, but we looked at this as communications. Everyone communicates, right? And people increasingly will want to communicate using infrastructure that they control. You don't want to get kicked. I mean, look at Parler. I mean, you don't want to build an audience on someone else's platform, right? And then you also want to be able to get paid. And now we've seen what Visa and everyone did to Pornhub and all these different companies. They got deplatformed for payments, and some way less controversial than Pornhub. But they get kicked off these payment platforms. So you have not only your community platform, but how you even make money really getting your bank transfer done. And you realize that you're vulnerable the whole way down. So having the ability to just own your own stack, be your own bank, be your own community manager, be your own payment rails. This is where I hope, especially Bitcoiners will get to, that hyper Bitcoinization, the adoption of Bitcoin as reserve currency certainly isn't guaranteed, but that's going very well, right? That's happening. You can just see the pieces falling into place. And in this future world, are you really going to go back and use Visa and all these different tools necessarily to do day-to-day things? I think that the adoption of Bitcoin will affect the entire stack up and down, not just tech, but everything.
Right. And I think you mentioned it earlier in this conversation, like the internet arguably is designed improperly, at least at the payments layer, right? And like what you're building very, very acutely highlights like just how bork the payments layer of the internet is and what it can be if something like Lightning were widespread. Like again, like it can be the new base layer for the communications protocol of the world, the internet. And the fact that it's peer-to-peer, like I'm running my node and receiving all these messages, receiving all these sats that are being streamed to me as people are listening to TFTC on this app. I can go to Great American Mining and say, hey guys, let's get off Slack. Let's get on Sphinx. We can communicate here using Bitcoin, just completely Bitcoinize our whole company. It's it's wild to think about. And like you said, the store value narrative is certainly extremely bullish and extremely interesting and innovative all in and of itself. But like, there's so much more to this. There's so much more to this, and it's gonna, it's gonna disrupt much more than money. And nothing, at least to me, makes that more evident than using Sphinx. And again, I use it every day. I listen
Well,
to
I can give you a specific example where, let's say that you were trying to do this on Patreon. So someone would have to support you if you're trying to go ad free and get rid of any self-censorship that comes with it, right? And it always comes with some, right? You just, even if it's in the back of your mind, you have to just, it just gets ingrained into all content if it's advertiser driven. And I used to be in advertising, so I'm saying that from some experience on the other side. But there's an example. I mean, this Sphinx comes out of Stakwork, right? So we have people. Stakwork is a microtask marketplace where, and this was the original thing that we spun out Sphinx from. I mean, that's the project itself comes out of this company. It's how we pay our bills. So we have people all over the place where we don't know their identity, and they log into a website and they do small tasks, basically training, image labeling, anything that artificial intelligence needs to basically train models is a typical type of batch of tasks that we would do. So if you have a self-driving car, you have to draw boxes around all the stop signs and all the cars. That's what our type of user would work on. And our customer would pay us fiat to do that. Then we buy Bitcoin, put those into channels, and pay sats to people around the world to do those tasks. So if you have a mobile phone and a login, you can actually turn your time directly into sats. It's pretty wild. It's a different on-ramp.
right.
And we want to see that grow because that'll just give us more money to invest in things like Sphinx. But then I have a Sphinx user who had no idea what Bitcoin is. Someone heard Elizabeth Stark from Lightning Labs talk about Stackwork, and a relative said, hey, you should go on this website and earn Bitcoin or earn sats. And this person just started doing tasks and didn't even know what Bitcoin was, really. Heard the word, didn't know what it was, didn't know what a sat was, didn't know what sat was related to Bitcoin, started earning the tasks. Then we enabled the ability to get paid from Stackwork directly to Sphinx. So Sphinx can log you into Stackwork, you do tasks, then you get paid. It key sends the sats over to your Sphinx wallet. Then that user got into Bitcoin and is listening to your podcast using Sphinx. And some of the money they earn from the tasks they do is going back to you.
The circular economy begins to close.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's insane.
But but even if someone were listening to your podcast in Turkey or in Syria or wherever, right? How are they going to support your content in that value for value model that Adam talks about, right? There's no rail that gets you the value that they want to send you.
No. And then again, like going back to the circuit, like this is the only rail again, and that's one thing. Again, like people very highly focused on store value narrative and Bitcoin the token, but they often overlook the power of the network side of things, whether it be at the protocol level or now at the Lightning level. The network aspect of this of Bitcoin is just as revolutionary, if not more, than the scarce digital token aspect of it, because that network allows you to send and do things with that scarce digital token that was never possible with any other type of asset in human history up to this point.
And I think that's an important distinction. I think that there's maybe a segmentation of people in the space right now, but there's people who really see and get layer one, right? And Bitcoin is an investment and it's digital gold, and I'm investing for the future. And that's, I think, critical, right? Without that, nothing else here works, right? So unless people value this, the layer one is vulnerable, right? Miners wouldn't mind, the whole thing falls apart unless people value this. But then layer two is more about, well, let's say that people interact, there's friction to interacting with layer one for sure. And it's not about buying coffee or anything like that. But if you think about that stack worker in Indonesia or Turkey or wherever they are, they're not on an exchange and they're not in a mode where they have extra income where they're looking to buy an investable asset, right? They're looking to earn. I need to supplement my income and better my life right now. I have extra time, I have a phone, let me increase my earnings. So what they're doing through Lightning is, this is kind of Lindy is, I look at Lindy as layer one, right? And Ginny is the real potential for Lightning is just to spread the value of the asset, or spread the people who value the asset and increase that number. So it's that Stark saying of number of people go up, right? Instead of just number go up. But
Yeah.
you can't have you can't have the people going up without the people appreciating the layer one.
Yeah. As I
So you
like to
need
say.
both. You really do, right? And this
Yeah.
links everybody together. We're all on the same team here, right? I don't think that layer two makes layer one any less important or a distraction. And the last thing we ever want to do as app developers on the layer one and layer two protocol is risk anything, right? We don't want anything we're doing to screw up anything below it. And this is I think the correct approach of Bitcoin is that you are doing a layered approach to scaling, right? That's how we do it.
Yeah. And as I
Our
like to
app is not going to break Lightning, right? And Lightning's hopefully not going to break layer one. This is how you build it in a safe and sane way.
yeah.
Sorry, that was a long ramble.
No, no need to apologize. Like I like to say, there's an order of operations to this, and it feels like the store value, that part of that operation is being cemented and it's ingrained in the psyche of the masses. Like Bitcoin is a scarce digital asset that's here to stay, and Bitcoin users, people building businesses on it and propagating the message have successfully completed that. Like it is a foregone conclusion that yes, Bitcoin is a store value asset. It's a very good store value asset. Now the next thing is like leveraging the network and the layered approach to hyper energizing that asset and getting it into more hands. And I love that user story you shared of somebody who didn't even realize they were accumulating sats, just doing a mechanical Turk like process and job remotely and just accumulating sats in the background unbeknownst to them. Like that is pretty massive. Like when you have people literally tripping into sats and into Bitcoin, I think that's a good sign.
Isn't that amazing? I love it. And then we had I'm not proud of this part, but we had a problem with just opening channels for a while, technical issues with getting people paid, right? So we ended up holding on to sats for probably 10, 15 days. There was probably a month and a half period where we were having kind of intermittent issues just getting payments out to people. And so that was bad on us. But one interesting side effect was that we noticed it happened to coincide with this whole bull run in the beginning, or I don't remember exactly what month it was, but whenever it started, for the first time, we saw kind of balances growing, even though payments were working. And I messaged some users through the system and said, hey, are you having any issues withdrawing? And they're like, well, I kind of leave them here because when I take them out, then I spend them. But when I leave it there, the price is going up. So now you have an earner who was new to Bitcoin, who earned Bitcoin. They felt the investment of their time. So they value this thing because they encapsulated their time in Satoshis. Then they see the value externally as denominated in fiat going up. Now they have this kind of time preference shift where they're saying, well, I'm going to spend other stuff or I'm not going to buy that thing because the asset price is going up. Now you have a saver. That's an amazing progression, I think. And if we were to repeat that across millions of people, then that's how people go from just survival to wealth accumulation, right? So you have to see it and feel it though, right? To trust it, that you can be a participant in that. And it's not for other people. It's like, whoa, I just did it. It might only be $10 or $20 worth, but I think it's the recognition that's important.
Yeah, it adds up over time. And just let me check the stats on our tribe real quick if I can. I think we have something like 150 people in our tribe. It's been going for. We have 160. Wow, more than I was expecting. We have 160 people in our tribe. Just from those 160 people listening to the podcast, sending messages, sending boost, I'll just say it here for whatever. We've made 1,173,582 Satoshis. So there's like 160 people. Let's say, so like today, how much is that? It's like almost $1,000, right? Or more than that now.
Yeah.
Or $600, 600 some odd bucks. Like that, and like, all right, are 100 every person of that 160 listening to every episode and streaming sets? Probably not. So we probably have a small fraction of that. And just thinking, like, our podcast, we get 500,000 downloads a month. Just the first time I've ever said that publicly. I
Amazing.
think, on the
Wow.
podcast.
That's
like,
huge. That's huge.
But like, imagine if that listener base transitioned to only consuming the podcast and the value for value model like that.
Well,
that takes it to a whole nother level.
That's amazing. And let's decide to do this. Now that we have the ability to onboard people, we can give you invites that you can give out every day so that you can grow this, because it's not what's limiting the growth of this tribe is not, you know, the number of people that you're reaching, obviously, right? 500,000 people is unbelievable. So get the 2%, the 3%, your inner circle, the people who are really the diehard, that whole 1,000 true fans concept. Let's get this tribe to 1,000 true fans using these invites, and then just see what the tribe comes up with. You notice that phone icon at the top. You could have a Clubhouse style audio room in here the same way that you do in Clubhouse, right? Just being able to turn on a call, invite people in. We need to really work on the interface for that, right? But the technology's here right now to do that.
It's insane. Without the spying, you can do it without the spying?
Without the Agora and Enjoy VC forks of your audio files. Yeah. So I think that's huge. And what happened, I mean, Clubhouse is great. I mean, I've only installed the app, and I noticed the whole dark pattern where you have to connect your contacts in order to invite anyone, and I bailed out pretty quick. But so I actually haven't experienced it, so I can't really speak to it. But I think the concept is amazing. One of the guys we work with, Jim, talks about asynchronous audio versus synchronous audio, right? So podcasting is async, and you should also have synchronous, and it's just different ways to interact with people online. But if you add this payment element to it, then you don't have to rely on a centralized server like Clubhouse, where you could get 1 million followers and get kicked off for saying the wrong thing, which in a live conversation, that is going to happen, right? And people these days will come after you. But I actually think that, going back to that young person doing Stakwork and on Sphinx, if they have the ability to experience the internet without kind of the Google and Facebook surveillance capitalism, what is that person like if you're a teenager growing up without feeling Big Brother? Will you have more freedom of thought? Will you have a different way of looking at the world that we can't even picture because we did experience this? I think it's an interesting experiment out there.
I think it's a very important one too, right? Like, we need, like I say it time and time again on this podcast, like, we have two directions we can go down. We can go into the digital panopticon, where we can fight for freedom in the digital age, which is an uphill battle at this point, but the technology is here. Sphinx is an incredible example of that. Like, it is possible. It's just getting the message out there and getting it in more people's hands.
Well, we don't even talk about this experiment we're running, but you might, based on what you just said, you might think this is kind of cool. But we have built what we're calling just a prototype of something called the Stack phone. And all we do is take a low-end Android phone, and we put a modified version of Android on it, that the only thing it allows us to do is brick the phone. So from remotely, we can send a signal to the phone that requires a password. But what that allows us to do is put Sphinx on the phone, bookmark Stakwork on a browser, and give them a login to Stakwork. And we buy the phone, we buy the SIM card, and we can give that package to a new Stack worker, and they can start doing tasks right away and earning, and then they get paid. But because the phone and the SIM are in our name, they can, if they were to try to say walk away with the phone, which no one's done, is we can just brick the phone as a backup, right? But what that person does, and what we've seen so far, is that a lot of people can't afford smartphones in these countries. So we just take it for granted that every person above 10 years old in this country seems to have a smartphone. But if we were to say, hey, there's all these people who are sharing a phone or don't have access to a phone, can we give them a phone? And then on that phone, they don't have, iMessage or Facebook Messenger installed or anything like that. They have employment through Stakwork. So they just sit on the phone, do some tasks, make some money that pays for the SIM card. It pays for the phone over around 8 weeks. They can basically half of what they earn goes to paying off the phone. But then through Sphinx, they have banking. They have a wallet. They have a way to store sats that they've earned. And then they have basics of social media. They can also message and they can join tribes and they can do things. So you have like employment, a phone, basic banking, right? Transfer of value, and the ability to message and assemble online. And we don't know who they are. The phone company doesn't know who they are. The bank doesn't know who they are. They're a completely off the grid person. What do you think about that?
Trying to comprehend it all. It's like, again, freaks, if you don't understand the gravity of what's going on, the magnitude of how massive of a shift this is, like, rewind and start listening again. Like, this is insane.
Yeah,
this is
that's what I want. I want to see phones where we're actually distributing phones, and we just have the basic stack that I just went through. But they don't have a Gmail account. They don't have a face. They can get one if they want, right? But they're not starting their digital life. And I'm picturing a teenager, 14, 18, 19, I don't know, right? But just starting off, there are not job opportunities. We hear horrible stories from people who just are in really, really tough situations. And I would argue, due to lack of good policies, you have limited job opportunities in a lot of places, right? So just because you were born somewhere, you have limited opportunities to earn, no matter how motivated you are. The system is pretty stacked against a lot of people out there. And so if we were to be able to do this, right, we're taking money from companies here in the US, turning it to Bitcoin, they get tasks completed in return. But then what we're doing is turning that into sats and floating them around the world. And some of those go to paying for phones and paying for service. But the people who are there, who are using them, don't necessarily appreciate at that moment. But what they're really doing is coming into the digital world without leaving footprints anywhere. And they never bought Bitcoin on chain. So we jokingly call that like the immaculate conception, because you're born into Lightning on a channel that we open. And we push sats, there is no on-chain footprint. So that's someone who can do the entire circular economy. That's someone who could pay you sats for listening to this podcast, but does not have a KYC on-chain transaction. I think that'll be the future. I think that'll be the majority of new adopters, right?
You're blowing my mind.
Following that kind of pattern. And what does that do for the privacy set out there, right? I think it's just, I think it's really interesting. So
you have an ability for people to make money, a bank to hold their money, a place in which they can access a new internet, communicate with others, a phone, all in one spot. This is ridiculous. This is like a lot of like Bitcoin adoption wet dream. Like, this plays totally to like like, this is like something you can throw in the face of everybody. Like, oh, she's like a rich tech bro, technology of the West. It's like, no, this is actually enabling people in very precarious situations around the world to bootstrap a job and an amount of money that allows them to get freedom in their own lives in places where they can't do that in their local economy. They just join this digital economy, contribute, and they can break free. It's ridiculous.
isn't that crazy? And I think it's, I think it has the potential. This is what I mean about just going all over the place. And this is why I feel like this is going to sound far afield, but this is why I think something like Starlink is so important. That's why I've been playing with it.
Oh yeah.
Because, if you're Starlink, for those who aren't familiar, it's a low orbit satellite constellation from, it's a separate company, but owned by Elon. And it's fast. I mean, 100 megs a second to this 2.5 foot in diameter little coffee table looking dish that I was running off of a car battery. Then you have a big Wi-Fi antenna. Now, in theory, let's say this spreads, I could be on an island in Indonesia that is experiencing real climate warming for whatever reason, right? But your area is getting to be inhospitable to your existence. If you have this alternative and the ability to work remotely, right, truly remotely, it just has that interesting thing. If you can provide optionality to people who are otherwise stuck in a physical location and a victim to whatever happens to be happening in the locale, whether it's weather or government or whatever it is, or unrest, right? This happens. So having this kind of ability to communicate and earn using the Bitcoin and Lightning rails is really fascinating to me. I think that is wild. I mean, we could end up not having a SIM card and not having a phone company pretty easily. So, yeah, I feel like these are the kind of pieces that, if you look at what we as a group are doing, we're not inventing any of the hard stuff, really, right? I mean, I'm not trying to minimize what our team does, but we didn't write the Lightning protocol. We didn't write Bitcoin. We didn't create Bitcoin. We didn't figure out how all this stuff works. But it's just, if you can combine things in an interesting way. And to me, just personally, what would be interesting is this whole concept of more people being involved. I think that is good for Bitcoin.
It's massive for Bitcoin, and more importantly, it's good for those people, right? Which is why we're doing this in the first place. I would hope, at least. Like, yeah, it's cool participating in the price appreciation of the token, but again, this is about freedom in the digital age, and this is providing freedom to people all over the world. And the Sphinx plus Starlink picture that you shared in the TFTC tribe is just incredibly scenic. You got like a railroad behind it with some mountains in the background, and it just really highlights like how stuff can access people in remote areas, like you just described. And
it'll change real estate pricing. Think about how many people would love to live a half hour further out, right? But you need to be able to work. It's a game changer.
yeah,
for here, and I think more importantly abroad, but I think for here it's going to be a huge game changer. And I live up in the mountains, and have 2 teenage boys now as of a couple days ago who love to hunt and fish and get out there. So for me to have Starlink, I was on a 8-day backpack elk hunting trip with my youngest son last year, and every 24 hours would have to drive 2 hours to go on a dirt road to find a tiny bit of signal to check in. It was so frustrating. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that this thing completely is a game changer. So it's still geofenced, and there's all kinds of details, so don't run out and buy them if you don't do your research. But it's I think the potential is there to do some massive stuff.
yeah. And I mean, the early data that I've seen, the speed is pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Correct.
it's crazy. It's crazy. But I really think that you could end up not having a Verizon bill, not having home Comcast. How interesting is that? So
It's, I mean,
big things are afoot, man.
They are, right? And the other thing too is, like, you can do this, you can bootstrap your way to making this reality possible, right? Because it's just the native properties of the Sphinx app, and the way, especially with podcasting, like, and building out podcasting 2.0, like if like we could, and I think we already are siphoning off some sats to the development fund, correct?
Yeah, you're parsing off sats automatically. So every minute, some goes to you, some goes to the podcast index, and you can send some sats to the app developer. You can send sats to people who promote your podcast. When I make a clip of your podcast in your tribe, when someone listens to it, I get a couple sats per minute for promoting a certain area of your podcast.
Yeah.
It is programmable money, right? I mean, but you don't need a token, right, to do it. You don't have to create something new, right? So if we want to just go with the simplest solution, I haven't found anything that Lightning can't do that everyone seems to want to do out there, but it's always just so tempting to make your own money to do it, right? And it's uncanny how often that's the right answer. And I've looked at it, and when I first got in space, oh, how do we do this? Oh, you can make your own money. That sounds fun. And then, but if you play it out a little bit, you go, oh, wait a minute, it ends up where it ended up, right? So.
Yeah, you don't have the network effect that Bitcoin has. You need to leverage that network effect, freaks. If you're thinking about spinning up your own token, and the likelihood of it amassing the network effect that Bitcoin has is highly unlikely. It's very low likelihood.
But this is where we need developers, right? We need people. I think Bitcoin in layer 1 and layer 2 has had limited opportunities for developers to get involved. It takes a special kind of person to do protocol dev, right? As you know, right? I mean, think about, my brain doesn't work that way.
No, agreed. But again, I think the potential that is shown, and going back to what you said earlier, you're not making that many Lightning payments. You don't actually use Lightning that much. It's, again, I told Ryan Gentry this when he was on the podcast a few months ago. Like, I think what you guys are doing is found a perfect product market fit for Lightning that makes sense, like enabling and enhancing distributed content production and distribution while helping the creators monetize is like massive.
Yeah, and Ryan's been instrumental, I think, in connecting the dots with all the people in this space, kind of behind the scenes, putting these things together, right? And Desiree too, and all. I mean, there's just so many great people in the space that have been working hard to do this. But I mean, we were talking about sort of international impact, but there's also, I feel like here in the US, Lightning can fund and do so many things that are centralized now. And one thing that's near and dear to my heart, having started with this whole keto thing, is affecting how food is produced and distributed. So things like food, healthcare, they don't scale well, right? I mean, you try to turn over responsibility of education, let's say, to an institution. How does that turn out? So that's how we ended up homeschooling, right? You just look at it and go, well, it's so convenient to hand this off to someone else to do for you. But then the incentives aren't aligned, so you end up with, I think, a bad outcome. I mean, a terrible outcome. And then likewise, hey, let me just entrust someone at the USDA or wherever to come up with the dietary guidelines. Then what do you end up with? Bad incentives. You get bad advice, right? They're talking about how to sell crops, not necessarily how to make you healthier. And so if you look at podcasts and the idea of the free exchange of ideas and being able to kind of cut through the crap and get to the truth on these things through peer-to-peer conversations and free flow of ideas, then all of those things where the institutions have been skating by, telling people just garbage, gets harder and harder to do because you have this escape valve. You can go into a tribe and listen to what is fake about our money. And then the next thing you're going to go is, wow, if I've been fooled by money this whole time, what have I been hearing about food? And then the next one, you're so much more primed to question it and say, all right, I've been tricked once, maybe I'm being tricked twice. And then if you go down the line, you realize, wow, we've gotten fat for no reason. We have had people steal our time in the form of inflation. We have had people call education, which it isn't. I mean, it's
indoctrination.
Indoctrinate. It really is. And then you live your whole life, and at the end, it would be horrible to look back and go, "Oh my God, I was fooled the entire time."
Right. I was that person in the cave watching the shadows on the wall. I wasn't actually participating in life.
I mean, it's not funny. It's so tragic. Think about that. I mean, I think about it every day in terms of just, I was following the whole dietary guidelines or whatever and gained 50 pounds.
Right.
50 pounds.
Hey, make sure you have 7 servings of bread a day. All right.
Right. And I mean, I work a fitness company bought one of the companies I co-founded, right? So I was working for a gym and gained 50 pounds. And then the CEO looked at me and goes, hey, I sell exercise, but it has nothing to do with exercise. It's 90+% what you eat.
Right. And how you eat and how much you eat. That's like one thing I go back and forth, like being in the Northeast, Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey area, a lot of bread, a lot of Italian food up here, and I succumb to my vices, or have in the past, but I've been very good. Like I got up to like 220 at one point. I'm back down to like 190, but like it is really easy to let yourself go. And like the combination of intermittent fasting and basically no carb, I succumb again every once in a while, but it's usually just eggs and bacon and steak.
You
Um,
can't lose. And
all
I'm
that.
not, and I'm not religious about that. I mean, I had a beer last night, right outside at a ski team race. So, but as long as you have the knowledge of how the body works, you can fix unbelievable things. I mean, I was prescribed. I mean, they said I was type pre-diabetic. I had high blood pressure medication. I mean, it was just crazy. And I looked at it and went, "There's got to be a different way to do this." Did my own research with the help of family members who were into this for sports reasons. I mean, he was an Ironman athlete using this to increase his performance, and within 3 months, dropped 50 pounds. It was crazy. I dropped so much weight, I got detained in the Moscow airport
For
because of my
what?
passport photo. Did
Oh.
not look a thing like me. Yeah, it was terrible.
You have to
So,
explain to them. No, I've just been working out.
oh, they just were just absolutely not. They were like, "This is not you." It was crazy. So that's when I realized, wow, this is pretty cool. So, but that feeling of, wow, I've been following bad advice for so long, you can't get back those years of your life where you felt like crap. You look like crap. You feel like crap. You sit down on a plane, your pants are too tight. It's just awful. You know,
Yeah.
it's awful. And
Well,
then something like bad advice around education, you don't get those years back where I had my kids in a standard school for a couple of years and we were volunteering in the school, realizing they're not just not doing a good job, they're actually doing permanent damage here.
right. And I had a Sphinx epiphany while you're describing that
Yeah.
experience. You get like this whole movement towards pods and homeschooling. Like you could pay the teachers via Sphinx. Like if you
There
wanted
you
to do
go.
like remote learning, you can just get like a really good teacher. As a tribe, you can fit however
Yep.
many students into that tribe, do a Jitsi call, and stream sats to the teacher. The better teachers get paid more. It's
And
ridiculous,
that teacher could be anywhere, right?
right?
And that's exactly what we did. We don't, you don't, homeschool is not sitting with your, in this maybe a tangent, but it's not sitting at home across the kitchen table teaching your kid math. Like that's the worst version, I believe, of homeschool, right? It's like trying to recreate a bad model at home by yourself is not good. So you want kids to be around other kids. And so we got together, I think it was 14 to 16 kids, and all the parents were into just an experiment and started a microschool. We rented the garage of the local science museum that was walking distance from our house. We hired 2 grad students to help be the coaches. It was literally a couple $100 a month per kid, so the cost was not crazy. We're not talking like private school tuition. And it was 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. You can drop your kids off, you can be there with them. I did rocket launching, I did archery, we did fishing outings, all that stuff. And it was great. People loved it. So that's kind of I think the bottoms up version of schooling that's working for your look. You wanted to do one for your particular worldview, right? It could be religion based, it could be just attitude, it could be whatever, right? You can have dozens of those in every neighborhood. And I think it would be such an improvement on what's happening today. And it's not something where you have to be able to have one parent not working or something like that. The whole point was you can drop your kids off, not the whole time, that's not the idea, but it was much more of a co-op style situation than sitting at home one-on-one with your kid, which I think is impractical and undesirable in a lot of ways. So I do think if I were to dream, Lightning enables this type of thing, right? Where you're working outside of a traditional organization. You might pop into a town and be able to do this. The same kind of co-op thing with food, where you want to, and we've actually been working on this, is you actually pay someone to raise a cow for you via Lightning. So instead of buying beef, and literally, I think this is on Keto Miner has a napkin with notes from our first call from I think 2.5 years ago, and this is just the bullet points of what we were trying to do in that call. But yeah, so pay someone, and I think there's some Twitter Bitcoiners out there working on this. I can't remember his handle, but I'm dying to find out how they're doing it. But instead of buying beef, why don't you pay X sats per day for someone to raise your cow?
This is the way, freaks. And you're speaking to somebody who actually just bought a cattle, like, and is having somebody raise it for me.
Are you doing that? Are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. How can you talk about how it works, or was that
Well,
doxing
as
your
a
cow?
family friend bought a farm, in like a farm area north of Philadelphia, and they said, "Hey, we're inheriting some cattle. You want to buy one?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "All right, it gets slaughtered in 2 years, but we'll raise it and take care of it."
Oh, you're doing it. You're absolutely doing it. So we looked into the tax implications of it if you were to buy it, just, with someone, not a family member, but buying it off the market. And so here in Utah, the way it works is that instead of paying as a product, and I believe there's regulatory benefits as well. So instead of saying I am buying beef, which is under the USDA, you're actually paying someone to raise your animal. So it's more falling under boarding an animal and a service instead of buying a regulated product. And I think that's different in every state. And you should actually, I think Wyoming recently did some announcements around this too. But if we had more people, and I think, I don't know him, but I follow a lot of what I think Bitstein writes about this, is just being able to get back to ruminants and the whole grasslands and the root depth. I mean, there's a whole, Savory Institute stuff going on there, but these are step by step. I don't think these are too far-fetched. I mean, I sound like probably a crazy person talking about these things, but if you multiply each individual, you doing it, me doing it, 5 people who listen to this doing this, and you have a way for people to make money by raising these animals in a humane and environmentally friendly way. These cow burps are not going to kill the environment, right? You're actually sequestering it by doing it on grass the right way. You're not using hormones. You're not doing all this stuff. The downstream benefits are so huge for everyone, including maybe accepting the pharma companies, right?
Right now, I mean, Lightning Network's already proven that you could feed animals remotely and raise animals remotely with the polio feed, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I love it. I want a tribe where everyone, the rancher is running the tribe. Everyone who has the cows in there, you can ask questions. He posts pictures, or she posts pictures to the tribe. You see how your cow's doing, and you just feel more connected to your food, right? And we go in and we buy these packages of shrink wrapped meat, and you're so disconnected from the reality of what you're doing. Again, you institutionalize something and it creates the wrong incentive. So now they're just trying to raise that meat in whatever country it's the cheapest to do so. It's ridiculous.
You're blowing my mind in so many topics here, Paul.
But we need to do it. I'm just trying to say it to get people to work on these various things, and we're working on some of them. The hard part has been done on the protocols and is being done. And then now comes kind of the fun part. The number of people, back to the developer things, who can interact with this layer is fun. Like building a bot to daily transfer my hay feed to the rancher is something that the developer can do. Whereas can that same developer jump in on the Lightning protocol? Probably far fewer, right? Still needed, but not as many. It becomes a much bigger funnel the higher up we go. So schooling, food, this all gets back to that fourth turning episode I really liked. I think you did a little while ago. It's very interesting that institutions become less effective and need to be reset. And you could go in, and me personally, I'm not going to go in and try to fix my local laws to do something. I'm not going to run for office. That's not really my personality. And I don't think that I could impact. I don't feel like it's likely that I could fix this system that exists in my lifetime or my kid's lifetime. And so what you can do is build a parallel system. And we've been doing that. Everyone in this space has been doing it with money, but the same thing can be applied to all these other needs that we have. And I would argue that health is kind of fundamental to being able to have the brain space to understand something like Bitcoin. If you're in fight or flight mode, you have bad food, bad sleep, you're not really receptive to looking at something as deeply as you need to look into, like Bitcoin, to really get it, right? Because you're in the surface mode. Oh, well, I'm just surviving. I can't listen to why Bitcoin's not killing the environment. You got to go 2 layers deep, and I'm only willing to go 1, right? So I think all this stuff is tied together back to just the human brain's ability to learn and be open to these things
and leverage tools, right? Like, so that's like our brains still haven't completely adapted to the fact that we have these new tools and what they can do and how we can build on them. Like the wheel, obviously, very famous example. As soon as we got the wheel, look at everything we have, from farming technology to cars to dollies that enable us to move very heavy things. Like the internet, obviously, publishing, media, social media, now Lightning and Bitcoin. It's like a different tool that we're still just getting, like we're still the monkeys in the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey, like gathered around the big slab, not understanding what it is.
And I think maybe the shift we're going to see from all this technology that we've really applied so far has been to make our life easier, right? Washing machine, I don't wash the clothes anymore. Air conditioner, I don't get hot or cold anymore. Car, I don't drive. I don't walk, I just drive, right? And so, but linking it back to health, the application of technology for that sole purpose has, I would argue, set us back health-wise, right? So what to me would be interesting in this whole little example of the cow would be, how do you use something so new like Lightning to actually bring us back to the way it was done better before, where you shake the hand of the person who's giving you your beef. That person is less likely to screw you over, right? And so using technology to kind of re-stitch the ties of people together. How many people know their neighbors? How many people rely on their neighbors? It's rare these days. And so my wife and I talk about this all the time, but food is, I think, a medium with the payment rails of something like Lightning that could get you back to this kind of barter. Hey, you brought me over honey. I got tomatoes, right? I got this cow. I got this. I mean, those are the kind of excuses, right? It's the petri dish of interactions that get you to reconnect with the people around you. I think it's very unnatural to be living in close proximity to all these people physically that you know nothing about. It's kind of unsettling.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why, I mean, I don't know any, I know my neighbors directly. I live in a small town that it's predominantly a summer town. I think outside of summer there's only 5,000 people. And middle of summer is probably like 40 to 50,000. And so it's very sparse down here in the off seasons. I'm lucky to know my direct neighbors, and we talk almost every day. I'm happy that my parent.
Are you surfing down there too? Is that right? Did I see posts every now and then about that?
Yeah, water's a little too chilly now. It's probably like 40 degrees, which is a little too cold for my liking, but I'll probably get back in the water next month at the latest.
Yeah, if you're wearing the 7 mil, it gets a lot less fun. Or if you see people putting Vaseline on their face before they get in the water, that's usually time to take a break.
Yeah, and it should start warming up within the next month. And I only have a 3.2 on me down here right now, so that's not nearly as thick enough.
Yeah, that is not going to do it. Not going to do it. That's an ice cream headache in the making.
Yeah.
But yeah, does that help cover things a little bit? I know we don't talk about Sphinx that much, but now we're ready to get people on board. And I just want to say thanks to you and Matt for everything you guys have done to help get the word out there. I mean, I think I would love to work with you on A, growing the tribes, and then B, finding new ways to interact, right? So these tribes need your involvement, right? People are there to hear your thoughts, right? And to provide feedback as well on what show ideas might happen or connections. So if we can help brainstorm those ideas and build the functionality in, I think it could be very fun.
Yeah. No, I've got some ideas. I mean, what John Carvalho is doing with his new podcast with the Biz, sort of doing community paywall or crowdsource paywall. I think that's a very interesting topic, or monetization.
I love it. I love what he's doing. He told me about that a while ago. I actually recorded something with him. I don't know if he's actually going to release it, but I think that was the first time I was ever recorded. So But yeah, I love, it's the Cambrian explosion, right? Everyone should come up with different models and let's see what works.
Yeah. And then again, one thing I do want to touch on before we wrap up here is
Sure.
AI training your own AI. Like you were talking about that on the Nodal call that we were on months ago.
Yeah, what did you think about that? Should I talk about that for a sec and then get your thoughts on it? I mean, I'm a big proponent of this, so.
Well, I just like off the bat, off the top of my head, like I remember what really excited me about it was just the privacy nature of it, right? You're training it. You're not being trained by it.
Yeah, that's exact. And I use this example of, there's a tension between myself and probably other people feel this way, where I use Gmail, I use stuff, right? I used to use Slack, I'll use iMessage, right? I have a calendar, I have a wallet, right? I buy things, and I'm not really so psyched on tying all those things together. And each one of those companies uses an algorithm to try to filter out from my interactions and learn about me, right? And they probably know all kinds of stuff about my behavior based on my usage of that calendar, let's say, or that email. But I'm not going to stitch it together, and I personally won't use something like Alexa or something like that. But each one of those has a slice of my behavior, and they're trying to do the best they can with what they can see about me. But what if you turn this around, and this is what I really would love to see, like Nodal do with the hardware that they have, would be to have, and there's this idea that AI is so hard, it's got to be run by Google. No, you can run it on anything these days if you have a pre-trained model. So what if you had your own assistant that's kind of a merger of Siri and Jarvis, right? That you want it to know everything about what you're doing so it can help you. So it knows that I have a calendar appointment at the dentist at 3 p.m. So it is able to help me with maps and with payments and with moving things around, knowing when I need to leave. That's stuff it might need. I might want to know weather if I'm going on a road trip. But all of those things are siloed right now because I use different services for them. But what if we go from all of our identities being on these cloud providers to it being on our own node? And that node, you want to know everything about what you're doing so it can do a better job of helping you. I think that's worth a lot of thought and exploration, because I think that could actually make a huge difference in everyday life.
No, I agree. Again, Paul, the way you're approaching all this is number one, mind blowing, and I'm just like incredibly thankful that we have a mind like yours focusing on this stuff and pushing the edge, because it makes the vision that I believe we need to bring into fruition like, tangible to me. Like it helps us get away from this digital panopticon, and the products that you're building and the vision that you have on how to keep iterating and building on them moving forward, again, makes it tangible. I can see the light. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're flashing that light, which is insane.
We got a long way to go, man, right? So yeah, and I'd say if anyone out there wants to help out, reach out directly through our site, Stakwork, stakwork.com, email support@stakwork.com, or hit us up on Sphinx if you're out there. So we're definitely looking for help on that front. And anyone out there who works for one of these companies, I'll plug our service, right? Is we are definitely looking for more tasks on Stakwork, and we have a good track record to show how we do it, and people are very happy with how that works.
Yes. And to end it, to show respect to the tribe in Delhi specifically, the only tribe member to ask a question. I think you've answered this, but just so we check the box here.
Sure.
I'm sure you can see the question. You're in the tribe as well. After Bitcoiners, which group of creators / people does Paul think will be next to move to Sphinx? Most surprising use case for Sphinx that you haven't thought of previously?
Yeah, that second one I would definitely say would be the food one, even though I would, it's the furthest out there, right? Where building peer-to-peer food on Lightning has got to happen. So that's out there. And then what was the first one again? I love talking about food so much I get distracted.
After Bitcoiners, which types of people do you think will move to Sphinx?
It's going to be the creator economy. And if you're following that whole movement of people who make a living off of any type of content creation, or basically an individual, it probably was called the gig economy, but is becoming more inclusive to basically people you're earning money off of their ideas and self-expression, whether that's art or music. We're working on a SoundCloud version of Sphinx right now, paying as you listen to music. There's a tribe actually of a great DJ who's spinning out. I mean, I'm listening to it as I'm working. So I'm streaming sats, working on Sphinx, listening to a DJ who's streaming on Sphinx. It's crazy. So he's distributing his tracks over a podcast format. It's awesome. So SoundCloud, and then we're also going to be working on print and video next. So all those will be coming out.
Freaks, if any of you are builders, you think you can help contribute to these efforts, please do so. This is, again, imperative technology as we move forward in the digital age. And Paul, I can't thank you enough. It's just, again, my mind is blown. I think this is going to be one of our most popular episodes to date by far. Just again, the possibilities that have been highlighted here alone have my mind blown.
Well, we have you to thank for a lot of it, so I appreciate it, man.
Well, let's keep crushing. We have a lot
right.
of work to do, like you said. No moping, freaks. Build. We have the tools. Paul, thank you. I will link to everything we talked about, and I'll see you in the tribe.
Awesome. Thanks, Marty.
All right. Have a great day. Peace and love, freaks.